Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sons and Daughters of Liberty. Tonight we'll be continuing with the Broken Systems series. We'll be talking about the education system, which is, in my opinion, severely broken and one of the most important in our systems that we need to talk about to fix. I'm going to cover quite a little bit, so this probably won't be as long as the last one, and definitely won't be as long as the next one. But there is a lot I want to cover. I mean, when we're dealing with our education systems, we're dealing with teachers, children, young adults, you know, preschool, all the way up to our universities and colleges, and including homeschooling, vocational schooling, you know. So there is a lot to cover. I mean, there is an area where I'm going to probably give a lot of focus to, and I think most of you know what that area is going to be when we start talking about the indoctrination and programming and Common Core and stuff like that, but we'll get to that here shortly. You know, because there's a lot of things that tie into it, from states stripping away the parents' rights, you know, to where our education system has become the training center instead of a teaching center, a learning center. It's become a training center. Now we have teachers that love to teach. I mean, my grandmother, for her whole life, that's what she's done. She was a teacher. And granted, I'm speaking of my grandmother in Brazil, so there's a little difference. I am also going to get into that a bit because I have that experience of living in another country and going to another country's schools. That's the difference of learning is. But in the end, they all have the same thing happening, at least from the ones I've experienced, including college. We have private systems, private schools, you know, and like everything, we'll just cover the caste system part of this, just to show people that even in our education system, there's a caste system. You have a superintendent, a principal, guidance counselor, teachers, vocational teachers. Then within the school system, the body of the students, you have social systems put in place. You know, we have, back in my day, we called them preps. They called us the stoners, the losers, the lowlives. That distinction between class was even being taught back then, which still exists today. We all hear this saying, they're acting like a bunch of school kids, you know, the drama and stuff. But there is that structure, even in our college levels. We have our deans, our professors, to the various people that do the maintenance around to keep up the immaculate football fields, baseball fields. There is that structure and hierarchy, even in all the way up in the college system. See, as we're young, we don't see that as a caste system, but that is part of an indoctrination program. We see it. We see there's, positions. There's a hierarchy of things. And of late, we've seen teachers that don't even have teacher's license that's been teaching, that don't even care about our kids. We see a teachers union in some cases that have been protecting bad teachers that should never be around our kids. I mean, Project Veritas did an excellent series on that exposing what's really going on in our education system, and it was enough to make you mad and sick because that is what's going on. We got teachers that are abusing children and whatnot, raping children, having sex with underage children. That's pedophilia, by the way. I mean, I still, going on 2 months now, seems like every week I see a case. And it's not new. It was happening even in my day. I remember. But it's become less taboo. These are the places where we send our children to learn, to be educated, to learn social skills, skills that they'll need as they become older. But that's not what's being taught anymore. Then we have some great teachers out there that are so underpaid. You know, my friend has a friend that teaches his his daughters just finished her master's degree. She had to go overseas to finish it, to be able to just pay off the student loan. But yet she was getting paid better overseas than here in our own country, in our own, what we would like to believe is a good education system. But yet it's not. They don't get paid what they should. And that is a problem in all the systems where you know, the workers don't get paid for what they do. And in most cases, a lot of the teachers, they teach because they love it. But they get to a point where they can't speak out against the stuff that they don't like, the new curriculums such as Common Core or teaching history, but yet can't teach about the Boston Tea Party and the actual things that happened because they want to remove that stuff. And there is where we're starting to run into a problem. That's where the danger lies. We have school systems teaching transgenderism to 6, 7, 8, 9 year olds. That is a problem. They should not be learning that stuff at those ages, especially in those ages right pre-puberty where they're the most influential to be influenced. We've heard cases of them not respecting the laws that were passed about that they so wanted to destroy about having religion in schools. So they took the religion out of the schools. They took even take pledging allegiance to the flag out of the schools because it mentioned God. But yet they can teach Sharia law in school through essays for a whole semester on Islam. We see adult agendas such as agendas based from the UN being implemented into our school systems and taught to our kids instead of teaching them the values, real education, real history. They want to strip that out. People wonder why the youth are the way they are today. And not and a bunch of them are starting to wake up, starting to see. But it's because they've been taught in an education system that was meant to teach them fake things. Teach them it's okay to be transgender. It's okay to, as the old joke goes, 2 plus 2 equals 5. That's okay. They've gotten away from teaching real skills. They got away from teaching our history, why this country is founded, why we have a system in place. As broken as it is, they're not being taught those things. They're not being taught why the Civil War took place. They're not being taught why the true facts about slavery. When the fact we all know, those that are educated know. I mean, I was taught this in school about indentured servitude, that the first plantation owners in this country were black. that immigrants that migrated over here, their passage was paid for by plantations and wealthy people. In turn, to pay off that debt, they became indentured servitude, just another colorful word for slavery, because they had the same rights. Except for once they paid off their debt, they were free. But we learned those things. We learned what the Civil War was about. The fact that a few years ago, a friend of mine that lived out in California at the time, her 10-year-old daughter started arguing with her mom about the Boston Tea Party. So that never happened. We weren't taught that in school. We're like, what? No, that's the reason we had a Revolutionary War. It's part of it. The shot heard around the world. No, that didn't happen. Paul Revere's last ride didn't happen. That's why, the saying, taxation is without representation, which we could pretty much, realize and see that it actually still applies today. But they're not being taught those things. So now they're being taught UN agendas, political ideologies. Taught that it's okay to live in a fantasy world over a reality. We've watched our education system be turned upside down and used as political pawns, our children, used as political weapons to promote agendas, where they should be learning why there's a constitution and why there's a Second Amendment and a First Amendment. But no, we had some politicians say, oh no, we want a new system in place. We're going to call it Common Core. We're going to take all the blemishes away that blemish what America is today. Newsflash, what America is today is because of the things that happened in the past, our history. So we don't repeat the same mistakes. That's why it's so important that those things be taught. That's why it's so important to be teaching people the real skills, math, reading, writing. I mean, writing's almost forgotten now because we do everything digital. We do everything on typing on a keyboard or use our fingertips. Now, in most schools, when your kids start school, they have to have a tablet. Of course, they use the guys, oh, we don't got the money to be buying textbooks. All of our textbooks are on here. And those that have textbooks, you're not allowed to take them home. Why aren't you allowed to take those textbooks home? Anybody ask the question? Because they don't want the parents to see what is being taught to their children. Because in most cases, you're not going to agree with it until those generations start having children of their own. Because then they're already taught not to question it. I don't want to talk bad about an education system because it's supposed to be so important. They're supposed to be the learning centers. Our future starts in the education system. Now they're using that very idea and manipulating it and programming and indoctrinating our kids. We can't have that. We have prestigious colleges that used to be prestigious, used to value expression, opinion, views, become melting pots for single agendas, single mentality, helping to further destroy self-identity in the young people that go to their schools. Many of the problems we see today with our youth is because of our school systems. And that is a huge, dangerous problem. And it's designed. The system was designed to fail from the beginning. Just like how they created the football scholarships, baseball scholarships, designed to give hope for those that lived in the inner cities that their only way out was through a sports program instead of a good academic program to where they got out just on academics alone. They lowered the standard. Oh, you can play sports with a C now instead of an AB average, 3.5 average. No, 3.0, my bad. They've lowered the standard. Now we have teachers that forgotten how to be neutral, so they introduce their beliefs, their ideology of politics. They take that label that they adhered to and start pushing it on our children when they're supposed to be neutral, supposed to be teaching the children to think for themselves, to question. I wasn't a fan of corporal punishment back in my day, but luckily for me, it kind of ended. But that was part of the destruction of the education system, taking the power away from the teachers, the principals. And later it became even to the point where they took all that power away from the parents, to where the parents couldn't have a say. They made it so hard now to get your kids into a private school. I mean, it was hard even back then, but it's even almost impossible now. They're making it hard for parents to be able to take their kids out of that school system and start homeschooling them. Some states say you got to wait till your children at least completes the first grade. Some it's a little bit higher than that, just so they can get that little bit of indoctrination and programming in already. And we have some homeschool school that's now trying to teach the Common Core aspects. You know, where do we draw that line? Where do we say enough is enough? But they'll blame that, oh, we don't have money, we need funding. Well, you know what? Back when I went to school, our sports programs was based off and supported by donations, fundraisers that the students would do during the summer. So they could have their equipment and gear from people in the community that would donate to the sports programs. So all that money could stay in that the school was getting for the education, but they couldn't have that. They did away with that. They say, no, we're going to take away all sports if you don't pass this levy. We're going to take away the art programs, the music programs, the VOAG, FFA. If you guys don't pass this levy. And I'm the first one that will admit, we've got schools that are so underfunded, not getting the money that they need. And it's designed that way. And we see it more so with schools that refuse to adhere to Common Core. They punish them. They restrict the funding from them. Make sure they get just the minimum, where they can't afford new textbooks. Busing. And they use these things in such a unique way. They'll dangle it in front of the parents. Well, you want this, you need to pass this levy. We need more tax. Or they put laws into place to where you can only go to that school district. You can't go to another school district. Further restricting where people can have a choice to be educated in. You know, Why is it the private schools has a higher level of education? Oh, the answer is quite simple. Because private schools, it takes money. And a lot of those private schools, only the rich can afford to go. And it comes back to social classes and it comes down to, oh, we don't want that person in here. So they try to charge more, or once they get in, the first time the kid makes a mistake, they use that mistake to remove them from that private system because they're not one of theirs. We also see this in many cases starting clear down into the preschool level, kindergarten. Oh no, preschool or kindergarten. How preschools selectively pick which children they want. In today's age, we see it even more with our young adults that just came out of graduated high school and just maybe their freshman year in college. You can see the lack of education that they've actually had when they don't understand what socialism is, communism is. They're not taught world history, why how every country that's had socialism has failed. They're not taught real economics. You see, we're talking about our children. Well, in my case, your guys' children, because I don't have them. But I tell you what, if I had children, or when I have children, I'm going to be the pickiest son of a bitch when it comes to where my child goes to school. They're definitely not going to no Common Core school. In fact, more than likely, they will be homeschooled just because at this point we can no longer trust our education system. And that's bad because we have some really, truly great teachers out there. I still remember some of my teachers and professors that truly were great because they enjoyed what they do and they loved what they do and they believed in teaching because they knew that we are the we were their future. They wanted us to have the best education they could possibly give us. I had some teachers that were just downright hard. Nothing. They thought you were slacking or turning something in that they knew you only took 5 minutes to do. I mean, but and we'd say, but you don't treat everybody else like that. You know, back then we didn't realize it. We just figured, oh, we're not one of the cool kids. We're not the teacher's pet. In reality, that teacher seen the potential, the gifts we had, and they did what they needed to do to motivate us, drive us hard, to be driven even more. They challenged us. We hardly see that anymore because teachers aren't allowed. Then we get to a point where we're in this system that's so old now that they're so underpaid when they should be truly paid well because they're working with our future. They're teaching our future. You know, and I'm not a fan of the union anything. There's pros and cons to it, but the union is archaic. But yet, you know, being in North Carolina for the few years I was, I see how the teachers there are hurting. They get paid less than what teachers here in Ohio get paid because at least our teachers here in Ohio has a union. And they use that against our education system as well. I think the things that I found most disturbing is the idea that subjects like transgenderism, diversity, climate change, global warming have been core principles to be taught to our children at that age instead of fundamental science, fundamental history, you know, theoretical politics. From K through high school, there is a system in place to train each age level at the right time. They know this, they understand this, so they know when it's to teach a different form of politics over the history of politics. You know, no education system should ever adhere to a political label. They should be neutral in all things because their job is to teach that neutrality, that neutral, not a biased propaganda rhetoric. Their job is to teach, show all sides, because it's up for each of us to make our minds, our choices, what we think is right, because we haven't experienced things at that age level. We don't have the experience that I have now, 40 years, because I had to live life. I see where several times now that I'm older, I've thought about the things I had said back then. It's like, I get it now. I know I was young, rebellious, young, dumb, full of, what? We all were there. But as we started getting out, experiencing life, seeing what life really is about, and then we start realizing. And I'm starting to see it, even with some of the younger generation, the ones that are reaching 25, 26. They're starting to see it and question the very education they have. Guess what? If they're questioning the very education that they were taught, that should tell us all something's wrong. Something's broken in our education system at our college level. I mean, our college level is bad right now. You can't have your own opinions and views. They want to give out degrees for the study of genderism. Let me ask you something. What are you going to do with that degree in real life? Because if you don't have a psychology degree, at least a MA to doctorate, what do you know about genderism? You're missing the key part of psychology. I mean, what are you going to be, a shrink? Well, you can't be a shrink without a degree in psychology. I think our college system are getting to the point they're treating electives as majors when electives are not majors. But yet again, we see it. We see our political biasness and rhetoric now dictating what each university teaches. We're starting to see a heavy influence of UN propaganda being introduced into our very lower level school systems and into our universities when those very things don't represent what this country is about. And the other thing, nobody's ever asked themselves or ever questioned, why is it other countries are 2 to 3 years ahead in the education. Why do children graduate at the age of 16 instead of 18 in other countries? Where's that higher education here at in the US? Why don't they want that? No one questions those things. No one realizes that's part of the broken system. My experiences in Brazil. I didn't go to a public school in Brazil. Public school was actually worse than our school systems here. I mean, by the time if they actually graduated from the public school, they were lucky to be able to read, write, and do simple math. That's how bad their public school system is. But you went to a private school. As I learned, once I, learned the language and learned how to read, write, proper grammar, etiquette. Those things matter down there. By the time I eventually moved back to Ohio, the United States, I went from being in the 8th grade. I would have been in the 8th grade here in the US, and I was in the 10th grade there in Brazil. And I did a complete reversal when I got back here. The things that we were learning in this classroom here in the US, I had already learned. There was 2 years difference of learning. 2 grade levels worth of learning. That's something most people don't get to see unless they've been able to enter a private school here in the US. And the private schools here in the US, they're maybe 1 grade better than other countries. They're still not being taught at the level that other countries are being taught. Children are being taught. But as I pointed out, when you start dealing with private education systems, private schools, you're losing that neutrality. It now becomes either political based, religious based. The programming of, you're the upper class, so to speak. Which is once more where we start seeing the caste system rearing its ugly heads right in our education system. Selectively picking the ones they want to be something. Instead of everybody having the opportunity to be something, to become better at something. No, they want to handpick select people. They're starting to pick our future leaders at the clear from preschool. Most people say, well, I went to college, I got an education, I got a great job and stuff. Yeah, well, I grew up in the 90s. And I remember what education was, what that piece of paper was. Didn't get you in many doors. It became just that, a piece of paper. Why? You're lacking the experience. I knew people, I did some factory work, who couldn't read or write. They'd bring in a kid that just came out of college that was actually taught to run those machines. That kid could not do what the person that couldn't read or write do on that machine. They couldn't get the machine to work and put out the quality that the supposedly uneducated person could. Why? Because you can't underestimate experience, hands-on. That person learned every facet of that machine, how it sounds, everything. Can't learn that in a textbook. But they wanted all of us to believe that. See, it was even happening in the 90s. But at least we were taught real history. We were taught to think for ourselves, the importance of that. We are also taught the importance of a good education. You know, the importance of picking what you want to be before you enroll into a college. Choosing the right field at the right time. Knowing that 5 years down the road, that's going to be the field where all the jobs are at. We don't teach that stuff anymore. Just like we were taught simple fundamental economics with the penny method. As stupid as it sounds, it's actually there's kind of some truth and reality to it. Every week you take a penny and you put it up. Or as you progress, the next month, the first week, a penny. The second week, 2 pennies, 3 pennies. So that was back when you did that, put it away, put it in a bank. It would generate over time to be more than what you actually put in because it was gaining interest. Well, they did away with all that now, so that's kind of irrelevant logic. But the logic of it was we waste, you know. We learned how to balance stuff, the importance of balancing. They don't only teach people how to even write checkbooks. I learned how to write a checkbook in high school or junior high. How to balance a budget. The very concept of a want versus a need. When you got to pay this, and this, and you only have this left over, this has to get you through a week or 2 weeks. We were taught those things. That's just not even taught in the school systems anymore. You know, Honestly, the part that bothers me with the whole Common Core thing is the removing of history, the indoctrination and programming. The fact that we're teaching our youth everything against what this country was founded on. We're allowing some foreign entity like the UN, and we're teaching their policies. We're teaching them diversity. Now, if I would have used diversity in the way they use it today, my English teacher would have smacked me with that ruler. Simple English class. Basic English class in junior high. I actually still remember her name, Miss Pulver. She made it good and clear. When you put div in front of something, it is to divide. So diversity is to create more categories and subcategories. It's to divide people. It's to put them in classes. But they're teaching our kids these days that diversity means equality, diversity means transgenderism. And they're actually right on the part on the transgenderism, because transgenderism is diversity, because it's dividing them into different categories and subcategories. It's worse than that, because we all know what diversity is. It's living in an illusionary world, a false reality. Teaching them it's okay to be something that you're not. It's the stripping away of self-identity, which is very important. Teaching our children to be closed off, not to listen to themselves, to their inner selves. They want to talk about, but I can have surgeries and become a woman. Yeah, yep, you may be able to remove the parts, but you still can't have children. You can't have a baby like a woman does. And guess what? You can't change your DNA. Your DNA is what makes the distinction between male and female. There's no changing that. So now we have school systems teaching transgenderism to 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds. Prepubescent age, right before they hit puberty. And then we wonder why our children are so confused. We wonder why we've had such a huge movement in the transgenderism. Nobody questioned the word trans. Let's go back to basic English. What is trans? Transmigration, transportation. It is to, in a sense, travel. To move from one place to another. Or, as in transgenderism, to move from being a male to a female, or a female to a male, or to some mythical animal, stuff like that, which is something completely different. Those that don't understand transfiguration. Is creating an archetype in your mind, and it's kind of like creating an ego, except for you're creating multiple archetypes. That's what they're teaching our children. Stripping away their self-identity, stripping away their innocence. And that I have a huge problem with. When we start destroying the innocence, that's spiritually wrong. And that doesn't matter what faith, belief, practice system you're in. The only ones that don't believe that are the ones that are the bad apples giving the groups a bad name. Because they're the only ones that get judged, and the rest of the group gets blamed for it. Because the essence of life is through our children. They're the innocence, they're the purity. But instead, maybe we need to look at it from a psychological standpoint. The fact that how, at different stages of a child's development and growth, there are certain times where they're most susceptible of learning new things like new languages and other things. They know this. They've taught that to our teachers. Now they want to use that to control the children, to change their identity. There's no place in the school system for that. We should be nurturing our children, raising them to be thinkers, creative, skills, people that question things, you know. But that's not what's happening these days. These days, everything is agenda based. It's a narrative. It's not a new concept. The education system's not a new concept. In fact, if you look at the classroom from the 800s to today, guess what? Nothing's changed. Still the same classroom. Still same hierarchy. The concept of private schools came from older times where it wasn't a private school, it was a tutelage where the teacher had one or two or three students that he or she taught. That was where the concept of private schools came from, was from the tutelage. We've had some great academics areas. Now look at this great academics like Stanford, Yale, Harvard, Oxford. Look what's being taught in them. Look at the students that graduate from them. Look at how they view the world, their political stances, their ethical stances. Because yes, our children do learn ethics and morals in school. You know, and when they reach the college, university levels, that's where ethics is really instilled over morals. Because when we're talking about the school system, we're talking in truth about our children, the future of our world. You know, we're talking about them being able to become doctors, whatever they want, and whatever this world needs at that time. But instead, they're picking and choosing who's going to be those things, even at the earliest stages in school. They're deciding who's going to be the future politician, the future doctor. The rest are going to be the workforce. They're even picking the ones that are going to be the cattle for the prison system. That's going to generate billions of dollars with its revolving doors. Not millions, billions. I'll rephrase. They're systematically picking who's going to be what in this world right at the right from the get-rip in our education system. I gave my one teacher praise for being so hard on me. And that wasn't his mindset. He wanted me to be better at what I did. He wanted to challenge me. And I learned from it. I also got burnt out because of it. But I learned. ethics and morals from that. Do I agree with that standpoint? No. Because you should have been just as hard on everyone else in the class, even the ones that weren't that gifted or didn't have inspiration to be artists or musicians or future teachers. Because as we grow older, we realize everything we do, we're going to face challenges. We need more than one skill set to overcome those challenges. We need more thinkers and people that question more than ever now. You know, my honest opinion when it comes to talking about this subject and a couple other subjects that come with it, because in the end it comes to the parents have had all their rights taken away when it comes to their children. In many cases, still have the teachers forced to teach something that they don't believe in. You know, some of the worst part of this broken system is the fact states and government have taken the control away from the parents. They've even taken the control away from the teachers who want to stand up against the stuff that's being taught. Those that refuse to buy into that system, and they're either ran out, fired, and that's where the unions fail them because the unions don't protect those. They put it on their little jacket so they can't be teachers at other places because it's a blemish on their record. Basically, a warning to anybody else that wants to oppose what's going on. Once more, another aspect of a broken system. We have school boards that doesn't listen to the community, that has no respect for what the community's opinion is. And they should, because every community member in that community is entrusting that school board with their children's safety, their children's education. But yet the school board says, no, you have no say here. We're not going to change. The only time they make change when they're doing something wrong is when it gets made public. I mean, I thought it was bad. In Toledo, there was this guy that was never charged, but he was kicked out of a school and was under investigation almost 2 years for inappropriate activity with a minor. You know, sexting and stuff like that. This guy ended up becoming a member on a school board, and the community rose, oh, holy hell, because this guy also threatened people. And they didn't want him to have anything to do with their kids. But since it was in the legal system, since the union was protecting him, it got to the point where when they'd hold their school board meetings, that they had to hold it in another venue outside of that community because dude wasn't allowed to be on school premises. Moral of the story, this year, the guy was convicted. But that school board would not remove him. There was a case in Wisconsin a few years ago where a child rapist, sex offender, was working in a school as a teacher. But the union wouldn't fire him. When people said, well, he can't be here with our children, we can't fire him. So what they did is they just let him come to school, and instead of teaching classes, he'd stay in the teacher's break area. Which, I thought this was kind of stupid because my interpretation, but different states have different laws. Sex offenders not allowed 200 yards from a school. Because I know I wouldn't want no one like that around any of my kids or my friends' kids. See, that's the problem with the system. Then we hear cases just recently of teachers that didn't even have a degree or license to be a teacher, teaching in high schools, in schools. Teaching who knows what to our children. And I think the other sad part that kind of got me, same friend I was telling you about, who's the teacher friend of theirs that teach their kids. They went into the classroom and they saw that they didn't have enough chairs for the class. Some people had to be, kids were sitting on the floors while others were sitting on chairs. To where he had to go out, he left, went to Walmart, and bought chairs, beanbags, and stuff out of his own money, so every student in that class had a place to sit. What the hell? Where's all this money that's supposed to be going into our schools? Well, I'll tell you where that money was. Going to the other school that was teaching Common Core. This school system refused to teach Common Core. This school system refused to buy the books, history books that had removed history. So therefore, they were being punished by getting the minimum, and in some cases, just outright denied the funding that the school needed. In what reality is that even right? I feel bad for the teachers of that school. You want to know why? I was making more money as a prep cook and meat cutter at Applebee's than the teachers were making in a year. How about those apples for you? I can slice and dice them any way you want, and I'll still making more money than that teacher. At a punk-ass restaurant. A punk-ass corporate restaurant. Because I could have easily went next door and could have made $30 an hour plus tips as a chef, meat cutter. But that was a different story. That wasn't a corporate store. That was, pretty much a mom and pop store that paid for the skill. But yet again, I'm still making more than the teacher. But yet I can do that at a corporate restaurant? That's wrong. I don't care how you want to put it. And the reason they were getting that off, and then there comes the argument of union, non-union. North Carolina don't have unions. So that the teachers didn't have that protection, that right to better pay. And I'm against unions. They're archaic. They're just another system that's meant to oppress and protect those that they choose to be the elites of that section. When in fact they're not even elites. They're just everyday workers like the rest of us. Everyday citizens. You know, how many years from now before our children aren't even taught how to write with a pen and paper? Why? Because you don't need that. You can type on a keyboard. You can type on your iPads and cell phones, or you can use voice to type to where you're not even going to have to use a keyboard soon. And trust me, I just got done a couple weeks ago setting up my dad's new laptop to where, wow, it was the easiest thing ever. I didn't have to lift a finger. I just had to use my voice. Yeah, not all advancements are good, especially when those advancements start stripping away important things like writing, reading, communicating, understanding language, understanding words, understanding that diversity does not mean equality, it means division. But that's not what some schools are teaching. They're teaching diversity is equality. It's going to be a better place. You can be what you want. If you choose to be, those ideologies, those concepts have no place in our education system. I mean, when I was growing up, they had vocational schools. They've tried to do away with the concept of vocational schools. Why? Well, vocational schools taught people what? Vocation. They taught them specific skill sets in specific sections. For those that wanted to be metal workers, work on lathes, architects, engineers, they went to vocational schools to get that vocational training, hands-on, something that can't be taught through a textbook. We have colleges now that don't even honor a vocational education. Oh, you didn't go through high school. You went to a vocational instead. There was a reason why you couldn't do vocational until sophomore, senior year. Because you still had to have that other part of the education that was taught in your freshman and junior year. When you reach sophomore and seniors, that's when those that was going to for specific trade skills would go to vocational school. I mean, even when I was still in school in the 80s, 90s, mid 90s, they were just starting to introduce computer as a part of vocation. But now our colleges don't even recognize their vocational schools. Now the vocationals, those that go to vocational schools, end up construction workers, welders, which are things that are still needed. But now their skills aren't valued. It's undervalued. Instead of back in my time, if you were a welder, electrician, mason, architect, landscape, and engineering fields, you got paid. It was some of the highest paying jobs that, aside from being a lawyer, doctor, shrink, that you could get. But yes, they were work jobs. You worked, minus the architects and engineers. They work. Trust me, they use their minds more than the physical part. And anybody that knows it, when you use your mind, that can be just as taxing and draining as the physical labor. But look at the sciences now in our education system. They teach global warming, climate change, where when I was growing up, yeah, we had Earth Day and stuff like that, but we was taught how to recycle plastics, how to reuse it. We were taught, plant a tree day. Everybody get an evergreen, take home. I wonder why we got so many evergreens on the property. But we were taught that, there was a natural cycle of things. Theoretical stuff wasn't taught in K through junior high. There was no teaching of the Big Bang versus creation, evolution, or Darwinism. It was basic fundamental science. I mean, yeah, we were taught how to dissect frogs and stuff like that, the anatomy, how things worked. Like I said, certain age developments, when there's the right time to teach those things. But now they teach things like that, and they introduce global warming. And the fact is, do we have an imprint on the environment? Yes. But history has shown through science that it is a minimum. Even at the most polluted time in our history, during the steam and coal era, from core samples that have been taken from ice, tree rings, and stuff like that, we see that we weren't even the biggest polluters. That there were certain cycles through our history of this world that were where this actually happened, and it was far worse than the imprint that we're leaving today. But there is some truth to that. We've seen how certain Aztec, or is it Aztec or Maya? I think it was Aztec, in Central America, they're just now unearthing this huge metropolis, connected metropolis. And what happened was they clear cut everything to build these 100-foot wide roads. Even though they were geniuses in some aspects when it came to agriculture, they learned how to terraform, to take the mud and rich stuff to where it float above water, and their gardens and fields were being naturally hydrated. But so we can cause huge impacts, but the science has shown that we're still a minute. It goes through cycles, but that's not what they want to teach people these days. They want to teach them like global warming, that we have such an impact when the science doesn't add up to begin with. Whatever happened to teaching that in science about the tree rings, the, the core sample, how they read the cores of the ice and earth. I was taught that when I was in junior high. They don't teach that anymore. They teach that we have such an impact that we're going to destroy this world. Well, this world will destroy us before we destroy it. And guess what? It will once more rebuild itself once more. It's happened throughout our history in this world. We get caught up in so many things, and a lot of this stuff we see is being taught now in our school systems where it has no place. There's a place for theoretical theories and theories. That's for a more developed mind. When we're talking through K through 12, we're talking about fundamental education, reading, writing, arithmetic, science, history. History is very important. History is there so we don't repeat the mistakes. But yet they want to remove history from our textbooks. Then, by doing so, we got people that understand what the Civil War is really about. They only think it was about racism. So therefore, all the monuments need to go. And they get this huge supporting of the youth. Why? Because that's no longer in their history books. What is taught in their history books now, that was racism. Or it's not even talked about at all. So in their mindset, it's okay to remove those monuments because they weren't taught that history. Because if they were taught that history, no, they wouldn't be even for it for a little bit. Yes, many of the problems we see today has come and has its ugly roots right from our education system. The system that was created to indoctrinate and program to selectively pick who's going to be what in this world. To selectively pick who's going to be the workers, who's going to be the poor, who's going to be the criminals. You know, talking about the education system is kind of hard for me because I have the utmost utter respect for teachers. Like I said, my grandmother in Brazil is a teacher. I've seen the love that she has for teaching. I've seen that with teachers I've had, professors, with the teachers I know. Then I see the bad apples. I see the ones that should never be there, but I see them protected over the ones that stand up against Common Core. I see school systems that are in need of funding because they refuse to teach and indoctrinate our children. They are punished. I see how the school systems in the inner cities have been used to further keep them locked up and taking away that hope, giving them a broken promise of if you excel at this sport, you can get out of here. When the reality of that is only the really selected ones that they want will ever make it into the professional leagues. But they keep that illusion up, so they focus on the sports over the academic to where they put a higher standard on the sport. So they take easy classes instead of learning a trade for when that sports career is over, they have something to fall back onto. And I'm not saying all of them. There's a few out there that, I mean, there's an NFL player that is a doctor now. Still plays the NFL, but when he finishes his NFL career, he will be a doctor at some hospital. He got it. He understood it. He understood the system. He's seen the system for what it was, and you know what? He conquered it. He didn't buy into what they were teaching him. Oh no, you don't need these classes because these classes are going to keep you from making it into the NFL. Talk about a role model there. We get hard on the professional athletes because majority of them are just that. They take the money and say what they're told. They don't care about what happened in Houston. They really don't care about those that are saying we're protesting because police brutality. But yet, have you seen any of those that get up there and say those things? Those that take a knee at any of the rallies, at any of the protests? No, they're sitting back at their $1 million mansions, sports cars, picking, sleeping with all the beautiful women while this is going on. But yet, then we blame all of them. And that's wrong too. Because I've seen what J.J. Watt did. I've seen what Terrell Suggs has done, how he's been a spokesman for the very problems in communities, and he always addresses it. You see, people like that, when they do something like that, that they chose to take a knee, that's somebody you listen to because they've been about it. They lead by example. You know that they're doing something like that, there's something wrong. Where these other ones, huh, it's just adding to their 5 minutes of fame. That's the world we're living in, to where we can't pick the good apples from the bad anymore. Where that one bad apple just gets everyone blamed. Where does that logic and education come from? Oh, that's right from our school systems. So I ask you this. What are your children being taught in school? Do you know? Some of you don't, and that's not your fault. I'll never blame the parents on this because it's been taken out of your hands. The next system we're going to talk about will be economics, the economic system, and you guys know that's going to be a long one because it covers so much. But the very concept that started happening in the 90s to where both parents ended up having to start to work, so they were both parents were now working and they weren't able to see and interact with their children, finding out what they were learning in school. Those two kind of connect on that aspect. They always use another system to help influence the other, to take something away that's meant to protect the one system or bring light to it. They find a way to take it out by using another system. They've taken the parents so far out of it to where from 2008 on, many parents were both working, and one of them was at least working 2 jobs just to get by. Therefore, even less time to spend with your children to ask questions. Oh, can I help you with your homework? What are you learning today? And we didn't catch it. We didn't understand. It was actually a design system in place for that to happen. Now we've seen the fruits of that labor. We see now, after some years that went by, what's come of that. What's come of the fact that taken us all the way, the parents all the way out to where they don't know what their children are learning in school. We're seeing it unfold right now before our eyes. And that should be enough to make you mad. That should be enough for you to want to demand the school's board, the school system change. That should be enough to make you call your politicians and demand that these schools get the proper funding, that these teachers get the proper pay, and that these ones that have committed crimes and abused the systems are removed. And to demand that Common Core be completely abolished, that our history is taught as our history really happened, that no outside influence is brought into our school system, such as the UN rhetoric of Agenda 21, Agenda 30. No Sharia law to be taught in our schools because we're not allowed to teach any other religion in our schools. And by the way, Sharia law is not real religion. It's an ideology. There's a difference. But they don't teach that in school anymore either. You know, because if they taught that, they would recognize what Sharia law is. It's not a religion. It's not Islam. And of course, if we talked about Islam, then we'd understand that there's more than one sect of Islam, more than one version of Islam, and we would know that the Sharia law is the radical ideology and version of Islam, the very thing that is meant to oppress and enslave, which has no business being taught in any of our school systems. Just like organizations like CARE have no business being a part of any school system. Considering CARE was labeled a terrorist organization, but yet we have CARE funding school programs in schools here in the United States. See, when you create an economic problem in the school system to where schools need funding from out funding and they're not getting it from the state and government level, they will get it elsewhere. And everything comes with a price. Everything has strings attached to it. We'll give you this funding, but you have to teach this. When you teach world history, you need to teach this specific history. So yes, our education system is badly broken, and it badly needs fixed. And it's not one of those that has, we can find a singularity point to fix it, because it has a few factors that need fixed. Giving the control back to the parents, for one. Removing the Common Core. Making sure every school is funded equally. Make sure the teachers of these schools are getting paid what they are meant to. And to make sure that parents have more say than the school board. And that we bring back ethical teachers that teach neutrality, that leave their own beliefs aside. They teach proper education, proper skills, proper history without bias. Because it's up to each of us to make our own choices, our own decisions. And many times our choices and decisions are influenced by the very same people, the teachers, our mentors, our friends. Because we haven't experienced something, so we seek the advice. Because yes, every teacher is a mentor, is a role model, and that it can be good and bad. I remember growing up, we were taught never to question our teachers, never question the elders. Now we live in a day and age where we can't teach that no more. We have to instill in our children to question everything. don't take anything at face value, not even the education that they're receiving, not until the system is fixed. And we should be teaching people to question things anyway. That is our job. Never take anything at face value. Always question and ask yourself, is it right for me? Is this right? What do others have to say about it? See, guys, I remember being taught this in school too. The fact that there's more than one story. We were even taught that in history, actually. You know, every culture has a story. Every group of people have a story. Every nation has a story. But there's also another story. The ones that's passed down from generation, from family to family, from the nation that was conquered and taken over. There's another story of what things used to be like and what was, and what was removed from the history to make it represent what it is today. Remember, there's more than one story. There's even an unheard story that's not documented because they don't want you to hear that story. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, the next one I'll be doing on the huge economy system that is moral. And we know that covers corporations, businesses, work, factories, skills, labors. It is a system that is wow. It'll cover even unions. It's a system that is just as broke as the rest. You know, the broke, manipulated, and as you can see as we go, we start seeing how some of these systems are intertwined with each other. You know, we start talking about economics, the economic system. We see it in the prison system. We see it had a part in the caste system, has a part in our education system. You know, proper education tells people that it ain't the piece of paper that has value. It's the skills you learn that have value. Your knowledge, your wisdom has value. Every skill that you know how to do has more value than money can put on it. That's why I said, what good is a degree in gender study? It has no value except for the indoctrination and programming that they created. Where if you want to, because you're also missing the skill of psychology. And if you studied psychology, then you would know that they're laughing at you right now for parading and say, "Hey, look at what I got! I got a degree in study of genderism." And they're thinking, "Well, yep, you got some psychological disorders." Just saying, because you're missing the psychological aspect of it. Psychology. I mean, we have many fields, many systems of education that are serious things that we need: engineering, computer science, medical, but they're all twisted. They're all twisted in a way to where you need to adhere to this. You can't look at the pseudoscience or the pseudo medicines. You need to stick with the pharmaceuticals. That's taught right out of our colleges to future doctors and future pharmacists, teaching us to get farther and farther away from natural and organic to something that's synthesized and created in a petri dish. But that's taught in our education system at the college level, universities. Yeah, like I said, there's so much we can go into to where each of these systems are never ending. When we point out a section of it, we find more that integrate with it. Many of these systems are designed to fail, designed to collapse, or even worse, designed to indoctrinate programs, to strip away self-identity, to strip away the ability to question and think for yourself. Those things do not belong in our education system. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know, probably boring, right? But like I said, the next one's going to be talking about economic system. And I don't know if you know me, guys. I'm planning on that for next week. Next Monday will be from here on out. Mondays will be till we finish this series of broken systems. I'll be doing them on Mondays. Um, Friday night at 11, I will be on Pirate Radio Podcast, which I'm looking forward to. So, you guys want to catch me? You can catch me there Friday night at 11 Eastern Time. All you gotta do is type in Pirate Radio Podcast, find their YouTube channel. And who knows what else I might come up with this week. You guys know me. I just go by feel, and if I feel drawn to talk about something, I'll be on. Until then, you guys have a beautiful and wonderful week. Be safe. I'll see you in the next one.